revolved around sports in some capacity or the other. Having started his career, of course, in advertising, as many of us do, with Lintas, with Low Lintas, and then worked with an advertising agency in the Middle East. Then went on to ESPN, where he worked in marketing and then later in business development. Moved on to Nike, where one of the most exciting ads that I have ever seen, the Nike traffic jam ad. I don't know whether you guys have seen it. When was this, Srini? This was
just before the 2007 World Cup.
Yeah, so I can just say that it was one of the best ads that I've ever seen, ever produced. And, to hear that you were one of the masterminds behind that ad is just astounding. So terrific to see that. And so, you worked with Nike for about 4 years, then moved on to the leagues, right? To BCCI, where you actually headed marketing and sponsorship sales and looked after the IPL. And, in that capacity, you did a lot, did a lot of really pioneering work, with the IPL. Then moved to Reliance, the Reliance Group, worked with Reliance Sports, primarily in charge of launching the ISL, the Indian Super League. I mean, the league for football, and that of course is one of the most successful leagues in football in India, at least, and it's definitely one of the topmost leagues it's made football a household name in India. And of course, then starting his own company, Sportjo, which is now what one might call a pioneering company in terms of finding people with passion in sports and then matching them, with organizations and so on. And so without any further ado, I would like to introduce you to G. Srinivasan, or as he's called, G. Srini, to take it away from here. So welcome, Srini, and please share your thoughts with our students, I think, who are all excited to hear from you.
Thank you so much.
Would you like to step in and say a few words as well?
No, you've summed it up so beautifully, Suresh. And students, I'm privileged, and I've had the opportunity to work with GS, as we keep calling him, in a friendly manner. If there was an encyclopedia on sports, it will be G. Srini. You ask him the questions on who scored the first goal for Manchester United against Arsenal in the 1997 league opener, he will have the answer for you. That's the extent of passion that he demonstrated. He gave up everything to say, sport is my calling, very early. And I've had the privilege of working with him. One guy who doesn't get flustered. I have never seen him get angry, irritated, upset. For people who go through sports, it's a challenge. What we call in our industry circle is G. Srini is the Rahul Dravid of sports marketing industry. If you want a guide to play for your life, call Srini. That's what we all do, and that's exactly what I've done here. Srini, over to you.
All yours, Srini.
Srini, you're on.
Yeah. So those of you who have
thank you for your kind words, Suresh. Yeah. Thank you for your kind words, Sundar. I've never got such an introduction. Hello.
Yes, please go ahead.
Am I audible?
Yes.
Yes, you are.
Thank you so much for the introduction, Suresh and Sundar. Really, really appreciate it. I'll just share my screen and start this. Is my screen visible?
Yes.
Is it changing?
Yes.
Okay. I do check this before every webinar. Otherwise, I start speaking and the screen, I'd move on to the third slide and realize you're already only on the first one. Cool. Good evening, everyone. and thank you for joining in this session. And I hope all of you are safe and well, whichever part of India you are. So, Sportjo, as the name suggests, is a short form for sports and jobs. We're going to be predominantly talking about careers in sports, what it takes, what the landscape is, and what the kind of roles are. So, one second. They've already told you everything about me, a lot more about me. But just to sort of give you, just to extend that, I was interested in sports since I was maybe 5-6 years old. Yeah, I did not want to do anything else, and for me it was only sports. But you coming from a family which you have to study, right? I mean, which was great. I had the good fortune of going to good colleges. Did my MBA from a decent institute, but still wanted to join sports. I almost got a job as a sports reporter in a newspaper. But coming from a middle class family, like no, you have to go do your MBA, and I did my MBA after that. I still wanted to join sports, so I worked for 4 years in advertising, and then I got my first opportunity in sports, which Suresh had alluded to. So I was always passionate, and I'll just sort of briefly touch upon how you convert that passion to your profession. So I get about 40-50 requests on LinkedIn every day, and a lot of people call me as well, saying that I'm passionate about sports and I will do anything. The I will do anything syndrome. Now, you can't walk into an organization and say I will do anything, right? They would want you to do something specific, something which is part of your deliverable, and have clear the organization has clear expectations from that role. So imagine walking into a bank and say I'll do anything. It doesn't work, right? Because they have absolutely structured processes. They have absolutely structured roles, and you're supposed to deliver to that. So just a couple of questions. Suresh, is it okay if I invite some answers on the chat box?
Yeah, you can do that. Yeah.
So just a question, why don't you guys enter it in the chat box? Do you know how many kind of different job verticals sports has and how many types of roles? I'll just sort of define what it means. Verticals means marketing, sales, finance, operations, etc., etc. And roles would mean within sales, sponsorship, digital, sales, airtime, media rights, etc. So just take a guess. Just enter it in your chat box, please. Just need to write. You just need to write V-X or whatever the number is, V10 R30, for example. Anyone? V15, 11, V20, R15. Good. We're getting there. We're getting the V30. Very good. We're making progress. V20, R30. All of you are in codes, so it's difficult for me to. Oh yeah, the names are also there. V35. Good. So we get the drift, right? Good, guys. Very good. So just keep this coming. I'll come to the answers in a couple of slides. What kind of roles does data analytics have? Anyone? Specifically. Anyone? Data analytics in sport. I have quite a detailed prediction of scores. Very good. Performance measurements, awesome. Player stats, awesome. Choosing players, we have not yet reached there. Performance analysis, very good. NRR, good. Performance of field data, very, very good. Very, very good. Awesome. Which non-cricket franchises have the highest following on digital? Non-cricket. Anyone? Yeah, I mean, it had to be a Kerala Blasters fan, Siddharthan. I'm sure you're from Kerala. So Indian. I meant Indian. Kerala, very, very, very good. Kerala. So you get the drift, right? So the idea is to understand what all there is, and to understand the universe, and then dive deeper into whichever part of that universe you want to. So let's get to the Indian sports ecosystem, right? It comprises of over 100 companies. Yeah, I mean, even I was surprised when we sort of made the list. Over 100 companies. These are divided. These are the broad buckets that I've sort of looked to divide them in. They comprise of broadcasters like Star and Sony, including even ones like FanCode, on which the Caribbean Premier League was telecast. It even shows the NBA. Clubs across cricket, which is IPL, football, which is ISL, I-League, and second division leagues, etc. There's kabaddi, there is table tennis, there is wrestling, etc. So a lot of clubs. Fantasy and gaming, which is coming up in a big way. We've seen a company like Dream 11 taking the title sponsorship of IPL, and look at 3.5 years back, there was no fantasy at all in India. And after Dream 11 sort of come through, there are about 150 companies in India which offer fantasy games. Well, I've not considered all of them. I've considered just a few of them as part of my calculation, say the big 5 or 6 of them. There are federations. There are about 56 federations in India which work for the development of sport. These federations are supposed to ensure that sport is promoted at the grassroots level, going right up to the national team. There's data and analytics, a very, very important part of sport. Pretty much the cornerstone of most decisions these days, because a lot of decisions from marketing to players to pretty much everything is based on data, right? There are brands like Hero and Apollo, which have specific sports marketing departments. Corporates like Reliance, JSW, Tata's, who invest a lot in terms of development as part of their corporate social responsibility. There are a lot of agencies, whether it's digital, whether it's athlete representation, whether it's operations, which support this entire ecosystem on their pillars. So lots and lots of agencies. There's content and media. We've seen the importance of content and media, especially in the lockdown, especially when live sport went down, when there was no live sport. We were all, when you have something, you sort of take it for granted. And nobody would watch the Bundesliga earlier. And when sports started with the Bundesliga, it had world record attendance. There are rights holders who buy rights and sell it off to pretty much people in this entire ecosystem. So this is what the overall Indian sports ecosystem looks like. Over the last 2 years, 2018, 2019, there have been over 100,000 Google searches with 70 different combinations of jobs in sports in India, sports jobs in India, working in sports in India, sports management in India, etc., etc. And the results been absolutely zero, because you can't find a website which tells you how will you work in sport. Even if someone is remotely passionate about sports and say, hey, I feel that this could be interesting for my profile, you just don't find the answer. Pretty much the reason why the contribution of sports to employment, India's way below the global average. The sports market in India is $1 billion. Yeah, it's over $1 billion. These are figures of 2018. Over $1 billion industry. It's moved from being a sector to an industry, right? And if you want to work in sports, there is not even one website. Pretty strange, isn't it? $1 billion industry. In a study that Sportjo has conducted with KPMG, there are 30,000 jobs in sports in India. Now, 30,000 is not a small number, right? And these jobs are split across the professional and the amateur sector, 2 broad buckets. I just took you through the chart of the professional setup. Amateur is pretty much what happens at grassroots. So you have academies, you have grassroots, you have sports education, which is coming up. Of course, a lot of school, college events, which lead up to that. The split of jobs between the two would be around 18,000 for amateur and around 12,000 for professional. So answer to my first question, a lot of you got it right. Over 20 verticals of working in sports. Now, if you slice and dice these, there'll be a lot more than 20. This can go up to about 30 as well. So whether it's operations, sales, data and analytics, you could do data separately, analytics separately. There's broadcast itself could be sliced and diced into multiple verticals. There's sales, there's digital, marketing, sports goods and apparel, which could also be, really different. It could just be sports apparel, could be sports goods, sports equipment, footwear, etc. So lots and lots of verticals, esports, sports tech, and sports gaming, which are coming up in a big way and are pretty much poised to be the future of the way they lead sports. Part of my second part of my first question, over 50 plus job roles. If you again slice and dice these further, they could even go up to 100. So I have sort of bucketed them briefly. For example, marketing. I've not covered a lot here, but there are multiple hierarchies. There are lots of other verticals which come into play. Take, for example, operations, right? Even just within operations, there are so many verticals. Ticketing, which is like a very, very important part, not become as big in India, especially from a sports perspective, other than IPL. But ticketing is a decent share of your revenue. Venue management, which means people required to manage where the match is going on, not just what's happening in the pitch. What happens in the pitch are managed by people who work in match operations, which means they're supposed to run the match, coordinate between teams, with the referee, with the match commissioner, and ensure that the match takes place in a proper way. There's accreditations. You might do, this word I'm sure wouldn't be present in the dictionary also. Accreditations are people walking around with those lanyards on their neck with big badges. You would see people running around while the match is on. Their jobs are to ensure that people work in their designated areas to ensure that the match happens peacefully. Everybody can't go into every area, which will create a lot of chaos. There's admin, event management of the entire entertainment, which has become a big part of sporting events these days. Unfortunately, not so much this year, but we've seen how entertainment can completely change the entire viewing experience. While we don't have crowds now, but you can see that Star has done a pretty good job with crowd noises, etc. I mean, towards the last over yesterday, I could hear chants of Dhoni, Dhoni, Dhoni when he was hitting those sixes. There's security and support staff, and of course, hospitality, which is pretty crucial because it contributes to a significant part of the revenue, wherein you get specific seats along with food and beverages, which are priced accordingly. If you look at sales, there's sponsorship, which is what people like. For example, sponsorship would mean what Dream 11 buys with IPL, right? It's called Dream 11 IPL. And airtime sales, it would be with Star, which they buy with Star directly, and it shows the ads on air. Digital sales, Dream 11 would buy with Hotstar separately, right? So what I'm saying is, while it's one company, it would there would be different salespeople who are proficient in what they're doing. As far as marketing is concerned, marketing with big sporting bodies, there are fewer roles in marketing, right? But it is one of the key focus areas of theirs, because a lot of sport need building ground up, right? Unlike cricket, which would require more people to view for a larger period of time, which is increasing their time spent. So what should cricket do? What should marketing do in that case to ensure that people consume that content a lot more? Digital, which has sort of become the platform for most sports to advertise. If you look at digital, it's not just platform specific, whether it's Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter. Pretty much every sporting body has a presence everywhere. But a lot of strategies are platform specific. For example, what's there on Instagram may not be on Facebook, because the audience is different, right? It is like people who watch MTV and people who watch Republic TV. Yeah, both of them are TVs, but there's a lot of difference. So the audience is very different. So you have to create content on it accordingly. And there are lots and lots of jobs as far as this is concerned. This is immediate snackable content, which people want to see and just go off. I'm sure all of you would be using Instagram stories, which has pretty much become what the mode of communication is for most sporting bodies. Broadcast, very, very complicated, and has evolved over the years from having 50 people at a venue, lots and lots of big cameras, to shooting on your phone, editing on your laptop, and getting ready in about half an hour. So it's evolved quite a lot. Continuing to sports tech, sports goods and apparel, Nike, Adidas, Reebok, Nivea, Puma. While I've just mentioned manager, merchandiser, analyst, there are loads and loads of roles there. If you look at the technical side, which is team manager, masseur, physios, yoga teacher, scout, pitch experts, turf experts, referees and umpires, and of course, a lot of security people. Gaming, which is forming a big part of the entire Indian sports ecosystem. A report published by Google and KPMG says that India will have 620 million gamers by 2021. Now, 620 million is the population of Europe multiplied by 3,000, right? Now, if there are 620 million people, even if most of them are casual, even if 1% are professional, 0.5% are professional, that still makes it 3 million. That's 30 lakh people playing video games professionally. And the way things are, I think my son is going to be one of them, because he's really crazy about video games. And trust me, there are close to about 500,000 professional gamers in China right now who do this for a living. Now, I'll come to it later, but this is something which is poised to pretty much explode in India over the next couple of years. So, like I said, contrary to popular belief, there are so many roles in sports which are first, there's lack of awareness, and secondly, underexploited because not too many people are aware and not skilled enough to take those roles, and hence the universe of sport is limited to a certain number of people and continues to be insular. What are the critical skills required for working in sports? Passion for sports is a given, right? You need to have passion for sports to work in it. So are people who are not passionate about sports also can work in it? Yes, you can. But it's better to know. It's better to sort of understand. For example, if you don't have a passion for numbers, you may not do very well at finance, right? Similar analogy. Understanding of the sport is really crucial. While knowing the statistics, etc., is great, but why do things happen when they happen? For example, if a test match is rained out on day one, the follow-on reduces from 200 to 150. Now that's an awesome rule. I mean, a lot of cricket players also don't know that. What I'm saying is, these are things about sports on the periphery which one must know. For example, what would happen if there is a thunderstorm and the match has to be called off? Will the points be split? Now, if it's a bilateral match, you could sort of sort it out. But if it's a tournament and impacts other teams as well, then the knowledge of that is very, very crucial. So what happens if there's crowd trouble and the match have to be suspended? Whom do you award the match to? Understanding the business of sport is also very crucial. Dream 11 paid 224 crores to become the title sponsor of IPL. Will they pay so much for football? Maybe not, right? Will they pay so much for kabaddi? Maybe not. How much will they pay for badminton, considering India has the top badminton players in the world, right? 2 of the top 10 women and men in the top 20. Now, if the country is doing so well in the sport, why aren't brands investing in the sport? I'll come to that in a little bit. So understanding of this is pretty crucial. Sports is about teams, so it's important to be a team player. Networking is very, very important, not just sending in LinkedIn requests, but also sort of trying to solve, trying to understand the industry better, see what you can contribute and what you bring to the table. Communication and hard work are, of course, given. Sports, having a solution-oriented mindset is very crucial because sports is live. Every second is important. If the IPL match is supposed to start at 7:30, it cannot start at 7:31. That 1 minute costs 66 lakh rupees. If I were to put it in regular terms, right? Because Stars is on an average selling 10 seconds for 11 lakh rupees. So if something happens, what will you do to be prepared for it? What will you do if that situation happens, and act with absolute speed? Let's spend a little time on this slide. Data analytics, as I mentioned, a lot of you have come up with those answers. So really, really awesome. So how does data analytics impact a player and a club? What you're seeing here is what players are wearing. It's by this company called Catapult. Players wear this, and a lot of their data, how they're running, how they respond to quick movements, quick speed, etc., is recorded. It becomes very, very important for coaches, especially when you're playing in different conditions against different teams. So your reaction to various environments is measured, and then you are picked accordingly. For example, if you're playing in extremely hot situations and I get injured in very hot situations, and I'm your key striker, the coach might decide to get me on at the 70th minute as a sub and not make me play the whole game, considering I have other matches to play as well. So it's such an impact on data rather than the gut feel that a lot of coaches used to rely on earlier. There are companies like Stats Perform, which create a lot of data and then syndicate it and sell it to most other companies. Dream 11, which has been the pioneer in India as far as sports gaming is concerned. I'm sorry if you can't read too much in this. As far as broadcast and agency is concerned, this is from one of our partner companies called Sports Interactive. And they've had more than 120 deployments just during IPL itself from a digital perspective. Only digital, only sports, right? So whether it's historical data, custom analytics, data visualizations, automated video graphics, video tagging, media asset management, custom campaigns, video production, SEOs, sports website, native mobile apps, quizzes, name it, right? And if you're saying over 120, that's like quite awesome. You realize what has this world come to, because so much of data is being used. This is The picture that you see is from a Red Bull esports tournament. Trust me, these are people sitting in a stadium watching other people play video games. That's what the world's come to, right? And this is poised to explode a lot in the future as well. You can see the number of people. I didn't have space to put the entire big picture, but on an average, stadiums in Europe get about 30,000 people in a stadium, 30,000 to watch other people play video games. Now, this sort of is just to give you an example. Last year around October, we were in London attending a program called the Leaders in Sport. They took us to an esports studio. What we saw first was a Formula One race, the Formula One esports race. So, like introducing, it was not Kimi Raikkonen. It was a 17-year-old kid, right, who was driving for Ferrari. Introducing another 17-year-old kid who's driving for another team. So they took their places, and this was a live program for television. Yeah, we were sitting in the studio and just sort of watching in awe as to how this is happening. I mean, there was Ferrari versus this, and it was while it was only about 10 minutes, the whole race was 10 minutes, but it was absolutely outstanding. Second part of that program was a FIFA game, right? FIFA esports game, the EA Sports game. So there was a team of 2 from AS Roma and a team of 2 from Real Madrid. They are actually employed by Roma and Real Madrid, and their job is to play video games for the team, right, in football. So they played, and Roma beat Real Madrid 2-1. Again, this was live on television, an absolutely awesome experience. This is just the tip of the iceberg. It's really popular in the West, but as we move on in India with broadband speeds, a lot more tech, a lot more advancements in tech. Simpler, maybe playing on your mobiles could be the future, considering we have over 100 million mobiles. This could become our absolute future, and sports will sort of, easily amalgamate with this. If you see a lot of football clubs across Europe, PSG, Man City, Real Madrid, all of them have esports ambassadors, 17, 20-year-olds as their brand ambassadors. I mean, that's saying something, right, for clubs like these. This is the homepage of a website for Sports Radar, another company that we sort of work with. Look at what I've circled. 7,000 data journalists. While they monitor, in fact, Sports Radar is monitoring betting during the IPL to see how markets function, how betting markets work outside India. In India, it's illegal, but they are sort of doing that. What I wanted to bring to your notice is over 7,000 data journalists. I mean, this is how reliant sports is on data. Favorite question of everyone is working in sports really worth it? Are you paid enough money? It's not that bad. There are outliers like finance and banking, which pay a lot more, but sports is sports. If you compare it to other industries, this is again part of our research done with KPMG. It's not very different from other industries. If you do well, deliver in what you're supposed to do, you will get paid well. I'll give you 2 examples and then quickly move to 5 to 7 minute presentation on Sportjo. Take, for example, Sandeep. Sandeep's played cricket all his life, right? He's played all his life. He's played for his school team, college team, state, and now wants to finish college and now wants to work in sports, in cricket. But he also suffers from the I will do anything syndrome, right? Does not know what roles exist. And he's really passionate, but does not know what to do. Employers, on the other hand, want people fast, want people to hit the ground running. And when people leave, they're like, so if you can see right on your screen, there is no commonality between employers and candidates. Take, for example, Shelly, who's working in sales in an FMCG industry, right? So sales has distributors, wholesalers, retailers, resellers. Is it there in sports? What are the fundamental principles? And who will tell her this, right? So it doesn't know whom to speak to. Employers are always looking for people from outside the sports industry to add a fresh perspective. But their complaint is that people don't understand what challenges are in their specific business. So, the marriage does not happen. So that's why we sort of look to launch Sportjo, a company which assesses, counsels, trains, and gets you a job through a process which is meritocratic, scientific, and objective. We want to be the change that we want to see in this world. And our mission is to transform passion to become profession in sports and create an ecosystem of at least 500,000 people to support the Indian sports industry over the next 10 years. Passion, as I mentioned, is a given, but personality, not everyone suited to every kind of role. And proficiency is what employers hire you for. So the Sports Joe formula is passion plus personality plus proficiency. It's common to most careers, but very, very important as far as sports is concerned. Just show you a small video of how the Sports Joe process works.
Dreamt of working in sports? Get the Sports Joe advantage and race ahead of the pack. To start off, make your way to sportjoe.com and take a unique test. This test takes into account your passion, proficiency, and personality to calculate a unique score that will help you determine possible roles you are best suited for. After the test comes your opportunity to consult with some of the leading personalities in the field. These one-on-one sessions with industry experts will help you understand your strengths and areas to improve. Training time. Based on your unique test score and expert advice, you are matched to highly practical Sports Joe training modules that cover all the skills you need in your chosen track. What's more, you'll get a chance to work on real-life projects and understand the practical applications of the skills you've picked up and honed. Armed with your unique test score, expert consultation, and practical training, you are now better equipped to apply for a job of your liking and the one that's most suited to your abilities. That's it. You're now prepared to kick off your sports journey with your renewed Sports Joe Mojo.
We do this in five easy steps. The first one is we collect a lot of data, wherein we crunch the lead times accordingly. We collect stuff like why do you want to work in sports, favorite sports person, and why, how much sport do you watch, where do you watch and why, favorite sporting moment and why, etc. It gives us a perspective on the candidate, as well as helps them map them to the right role. For example, if you put basketball in your interest area, our algorithm is smart enough to search basketball, because if the NBA comes looking for someone with an interest in basketball, we'll be able to find them in a few seconds. The first step is Sports Score, which is a proprietary test divided into three parts: passion, personality, and proficiency. Passion is fairly straightforward. Proficiency is questions on sports with a lens of business. For example, if you're interested in sales, you should know which brand is there on the front of Chennai Super Kings or on the back of Mumbai Indians. So this is how your report looks like. We tell you that you are most likely suited to a role in operations or marketing. What that happens is that's the difference between I think I'm good at this to where I stand. Yeah. So our next step is called Sport Consult, wherein after you filled in data, you've taken your test. We put you in front of an industry expert who will give you immense guidance and a clear action plan on what you need to work on personally and professionally after analyzing your test score. The third part is called Sport Prep, which is not a course, it's not a certified course, but it's an online masterclass. It's been curated by industry experts for us who feature in those. This is what people do in their offices every day. These are real life things. 3-minute modules, etc. Right now we're starting with 4 of these, and we'll introduce things like data analytics, academies, etc. 3 months later. Every 2-3 months, we'll keep adding so as to cover the entire ecosystem of sports. The next part is something which is really sought after, which is live projects. These are real life business problems that companies face. Like, how would you increase ticket sales for a local franchise, or how will you increase fan base for a local franchise? So, you've been evaluated by Sports Joe, evaluated by an industry expert, and when you're working for a company with a partner company, you've been evaluated by the industry itself. So 3 different levels of evaluation, which gives rise to immense self-awareness and immense self-awareness and a lot of rich and meaningful data to the employer. These are the kind of companies that we're working with. Not too many IPL teams this year because of obvious reasons. We're working with pretty much all ISL teams, placed interns for Tata Trust in hockey, for Sports for All, Reliance Foundation, doing a few full-time roles for a few companies which are sort of advertised. So, and in a couple of months, as things become slightly better, we will look at working with almost all of the 100 companies. So if you look at Sandeep's journey from being the I will do anything syndrome to being aware of what you can do, taking counseling, taking training, and therefore getting mapped to the right company is really, really crucial. From Shelly's profile, from sales in an FMCG, she came to know that she was interested in digital. You can't apply to digital companies saying, I'm from a sales background in FMCG. You won't even be shortlisted, right? So how do you sort that out? You take the consulting piece, you take training, you do a project with a company in the industry saying, this is what I've done. And a combination of sales plus digital will hold you in good stead in the future. Thank you. Open to questions, sir.
Thank you.
Okay.
Suresh, all yours.
Thank you so much, Mr. Srini. I think I've got so much of questions, flowing in. So I'm just going to club them in some form and then try to, put that across. And I think the first question is playing a sport, following a sport, and managing a sport are three different things. Right, and if I believe that I am very good in playing a sport and following the sport, and I have the love for the sport, will I be able to manage the sport very well? What is your opinion on this?
The answer is no. Yeah? As I mentioned, the first step, what you mentioned, playing a sport and following a sport is passion, right? And passion is not equal to a career in sports. That's the first sort of myth that we sort of bust with a lot of people, saying that passion is a given. You have to have passion, but it's personality plus proficiency, which is equal to a career in sports, right? I might watch matches. I might know Champions League like the back of my hand, right? But what I'm saying is that's not what employers will hire you for. What employers hire you for is proficiency. What are you bringing to the table? Your knowledge of sports will be really, really crucial in what you are delivering via your proficiency. For example, if you're a sales guy and you go out to make a pitch for sales and you're selling football, your knowledge of sports it'll automatically help you close the deal a lot better because of your sheer knowledge of the sport, right? But will just that take you to a job? No. Which is precisely, so I'll give you an example. When we're working for Reliance, we're looking for a head of marketing, right? And, we briefed a few headhunters. And, for something like this, there should have been a line outside your office for the people who would want to work in sports, across so many disciplines. But it took us like almost a year to fill that up. Why? Because of the same problem. Because you will get people who are crazy about sports and people who don't know sports at all, but are very good at marketing. So which one do you choose? You would ideally want a hybrid of those, right? So which is why passion plus personality plus proficiency is the formula that I think you should look at.
Thank you, Mr. Srini. I think that logically leads to the next question, which is on the supply and demand of jobs in this industry. So since I think the student raises the issue, since no awareness is the awareness is pretty low at this point in time, the information on sports and jobs are very less. Do you think there are a lot of non-specialists who are actually getting themselves fitted into this kind of an industry, and how does the outlook actually pan out in the next few years?
Fantastic question. And that's absolutely true. And as I rightly explained, some of us are lucky enough to just get into the industry. We managed to navigate our way. And the slide that I explained, wherein people from outside the industry want to come, it's impossible to break through. It's impossible to break through if you don't have references. If you don't have references, you struggle, which is precisely the reason why we founded Sporjo, so that there is a meritocratic pathway in reaching your objective. Right now, there's a big feeling, and which is true to a certain extent, that the sports industry is insular. What happens is somehow people get in, and the sports industry, because they want people fast, they want people to hit the ground running, they keep going back to the same people. Those people become specialists over a period of time. But is that ideal? Absolutely no. I think the first step is awareness, right? Second step is clarity on roles and what the expectations of those roles are. And the third step is understanding what challenges the business faces, right? It's easy to look at a match on TV and say, nobody's come to watch this match, this must be boring. But, there could be multiple reasons for that. There could be a buzz in the city. There could be a new movie that's releasing, or there could be a lot of other issues. So what I'm saying is understanding the industry, the jobs in the industry and the expectations, and understanding the real life problems will hold someone in good stead if they have to apply for a job in the industry.
Excellent. I think that really throws quite a bit of light on that. I think one more interesting question is around 2008-9, Nike launched a campaign to sign up international Indian cricketers. But it seems that over the last 7 or 8 years, Nike seems to be less involved. And companies like Baseline Ventures are now more signing up people from the second-tier cities or smaller known players. Why are these companies making these kind of decisions to move more to domestic than sign up big fishes?
I was hired by Nike immediately after they got the rights for the cricket, the Indian cricket team. And after you joined, the first thing we made fantastic ads, right? But our product was priced at 2,400 rupees in 2007. In India, nobody buys a jersey for 2,400 rupees, right? Companies like Nike, which are listed companies, will always focus on margins. Profitability is very, very important for them. For example, you might ask, why is a shoe from Nike so expensive? As soon as the shoe lands in India, there's 72% duty on it, and Nike wants to retain their margins, right? The solution to that is manufacturing local to local, and again, that comes with a lot of issues, compliances, rules, etc., which these companies don't, the headache these companies don't want. Which is why companies like Nike, Adidas, Puma, etc., are not doing too well. Which is why a brand like Decathlon, which manufactures locally, seems to be doing a lot better, because Decathlon is number one in terms of sales of sports, even above Nike and Adidas. You would expect them to, because that's the aura that they've created. Coming to your question, which is why doesn't Nike sign a lot of players? Nike has signed a lot of cricketers, right? But for them, if there is no return on investment, it really does not make any sense. Right now, Nike has only a handful of players. Ashwin on a footwear deal. There's Pujara. There is Shreyas Iyer, and a few more. But it really does not make sense for Nike to pick up these players. Baseline, on the other hand, is a player manager, a player representation manager. So Baseline will also have to go to Nike. Nike will have to go to Baseline to sign a player for a deal. So it's not competition. It's still part of the whole ecosystem. If Baseline represents Prithvi Shaw and Nike wants Prithvi Shaw to wear Nike shoes, they will have to go to Baseline. So I think Baseline, Tuhin is a great friend of mine. They've done a fantastic job of promoting non-cricket athletes, and I think that's really, really good. What that does. So in cricket, you are not responsible for them. Cricket is a country-to-country sport, so they don't play for too many clubs. So cricket manager's job in Baseline would be responsible mostly for commercial activities regarding that player only. But if you work in football, you're responsible for that player moving clubs as well, right? If you work in a sport where the federation is weak, you may have to work on the player's nutritional needs as well, figuring out which tournaments the player participates in as well. So I think Baseline has overall done a very, very good job in giving the sports athlete management space a lot of structure.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Srini, for this explicating these nuances. I think that's very important for the students to know. I think the next question I think the student is raising is, gambling stroke betting is banned in India. How did Dream 11 emerge successful? Also back the title sponsorship for the rights for IPL.
Great question. So a couple of years back, the Punjab High Court, till then fantasy was pretty much banned in India, right? The Punjab High Court, I think 2.5 years back, passed a ruling that fantasy is a game of skill, not chance. A game of chance is equal to gambling, right? Now, so much so that Ludo seems to be a game of skill, not chance, right? And they've clocked like a few 100 crores during the lockdown, where lots of people are playing online Ludo. You can imagine. So coming back to Dream 11, I'm sure a lot of you would have seen the Mayweather-Pacquiao fight, right? The Mayweather-Pacquiao fight, Mayweather walked away with $750 million odd. Pacquiao, after losing the fight, got $300 million. That's close to about $1 billion in one fight for a few minutes, not even 1 hour. Now, the revenue streams for this was, if they were paid $1 billion, which means they made more than $1 billion. So 90% of the revenue came from two sources. One was pay-per-view, which means you pay to watch this fight only. And the second was betting, right? These two contributed to 90%. 10% of the money was through ticketing in Las Vegas. Now, both pay-per-view and betting are not there in India, which means our ecosystem loses out on so much money. Take the example of the Premier League. I'll come to Dream 11 right now. I'm sure a lot of football fans will realize when they watch it closely, in the 90s and 2000s, the front of shirts of most Premier League teams was consumer durables. Man United had Sharp, Arsenal had JVC, Liverpool had Carlsberg. Now, if you see, around 8 or 10 of them out of 20 are betting companies. That's how money comes into the sport. Coming to Dream 11, it's absolutely legit as per the Indian law is concerned. And that is why they became sort of for title sponsorship of the IPL.
Mr. Srini, follow-up question on this. Do you think betting will be legalized in India? So,
For the sake of sport, I think it should be. And considering that this is India, the law has to be really strict. Otherwise betting can't be regulated. If you look at in US, it's just started like a year back. In UK, it's very regulated and very, very strict, which means if found guilty, you'll be barred for life. I think if those measures are in place in India so that the players are not easily corrupted, I think betting should be legalized. It's for the sake of sport. The example I gave with the Premier League, infusion of money from betting itself will give a huge fillip to sport in India.
right. So I'll go for another two or three more questions. I think that's
Go for it, please.
Yeah, and you can the timing is okay. So one of the student asks, what is the scope for events like MMA in India? MMA companies such as UFC, which is a 7 billion company now, can such events happen in India? I think he's talking about Ultimate Fighting Championship.
Yeah, UFC, of course. We used to work in IMG and IMG's parent WME Endeavor bought the rights for UFC, and we were talking to them for quite some time to have a UFC event in India, but again comes with a lot of issues itself. So it'll do very well in India. Yeah. So it's slightly paradoxical because Indians love contact sports. WWE has survived for years and years on 10 sports, rating higher than most television programs that you will see, only because of WWE. 10 sports, which is now Sony Sports, right? Sony 6, Sony 10, whatever. Now, Indians love contact sports. Why does India love kabaddi? Right? It is a contact sport. I mean, it's not fully a sport, but there is contact. What happens when you cross the line, when you go further down the line? Boxing, right? India loves boxing. Wrestling, right? India loves wrestling. India gets a lot of medals in boxing. India gets a lot of medals in wrestling. We make movies on wrestling and boxing, right? Go a little further. UFC. Indians can handle contact sport up to a certain extent, and this is my personal view, right? But the moment it starts getting gory with blood, etc., then there is a problem, right? And I think that's where we sort of need to stop. If UFC, etc., can sort of do that, I think it'll do very well in India. But the moment it crosses the line into slightly gory or slightly, more brutal than boxing, because boxing, wrestling, you don't bleed. I mean, you get hurt a lot. But what I'm saying is, it's still not cross the line to go to gory. So I think both of them will do very, 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 very well in India if, again, regulated, moderated to make it slightly suitable to the Indian palate.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Srini. I think one more question is, you talked about esports in India. How can we as management students should take this opportunity?
To be very honest, I think it's still in its sunrise stage, very, very nascent stages right now. The number I told you is a projected number at the end of 2021, right? So right now, the ecosystem is still sort of being in place. We got a brief from an esports company to hire someone for them. We'll sort of do that, but we found out that the market is very, very disorganized. Yeah, companies are being put in place. Like for example, Ronnie's company, U Sports, the U Cypher is their gaming wing. They have a team which used to professionally play PUBG tournaments. Now PUBG is banned, they'll play 4G. So they have a team which competes in esports events. That whole ecosystem is not yet structured. You need to have a strong federation in place, which will, there'll be a lot more tournaments. There should be a lot more tournaments, and therefore a lot more people will come into that industry. But it'll take about a year and a half. By the time you finish your course and get a little bit of work experience in somewhere, esports will sort of be booming in India over the next couple of years. But I would say give it a year and a half, 2 years.
So yeah, Mr. Srini, few more questions are there. Kindly let me know if it's time to stop. So
No, please go on.
So why don't leagues like Badminton Premier League have a runaway success in India, even though top players all over the world have signed up for it?
To be very honest, there are only not even the IPL, right, where I worked, right, where Sundar and I worked, did not have the best players from all over the world because it did not have Pakistani players, right. The Hockey India League, when Pakistanis were allowed, was probably the only league which had the best players in the world, right? Badminton also has great players from all over the world. Now, what happens is most leagues think I'll copy paste the IPL model and my league will work. It doesn't work like that. As I mentioned some time back, India is an advertising market. It is not a subscription market. Sky Sports and Sky Sports and BT pay over $6 billion for Premier League rights, and they get that through subscription. We pay 100 rupees and get 1,000 channels as part of our subscription, right? Now, India, which is why cricket is very successful, because there are close to 2,600 seconds on broadcast for every IPL game. And it's full right now, that inventory. There is not one spot left. Now, cricket is something which is suited to the Indian ecosystem, the Indian advertising industry, which is why it makes a lot of money. Every 3 minutes, there is an ad, right? There are a few ads. If you take football, for example, football has a 30-minute break. That's it. You don't have any breaks in between. So it's not suited for the Indian market. Badminton, there are not as many breaks, but the format in badminton has to be very different. For example, when Sindhu played the semi-final against the final against Carolina Marin in the Olympics, that was the second highest viewed sporting event, non-cricket sporting event in India. So maybe the format is not okay. Everything, it cannot be a league. It could just be a tournament which people come and play. For example, if you launch an IPL, a league for boxing, will it be successful? It may not, because that's not the format for the sport. So I think it's very important to consider a few factors. Is the format for the sport right? And is it as per the Indian industry where people are willing to put money?
Thank you, Mr. Srini. I think it's an amazing sort of facts and answers. So, just one more is last season we had Kings versus Pacers, the NBA preseason matches in India. What would it take to have flagship preseason matches, say Lakers versus Celtics in India?
What will it take is it'll take a lot of money. Yeah, and this time, both Sundar and I worked on it. It was very, very difficult dealing with those guys because in June they said, give me your logo. When the match was on 4th of October, I said, why? I said, because the boards will be painted, the court will be painted there and it'll come on a ship there. No, saying jokes apart, it was Reliance paid, Reliance Foundation paid a big part of the money which sort of helped subsidize these games. But raising that money for a 2-day event is very, very difficult. NBA also, if not hit by the pandemic, would have taken a break in India and maybe come back a year later. This is exactly what happens. Why doesn't Man United come to play in India, right? If they play one exhibition game, it costs close to about $2-3 million for one game. $2-3 million, 14-15 crores. Who will pay for that one game, right? So I think it's appearance fee in most cases. It's very, very difficult to put to raise that money from the market unless there are evangelists like, say, a Reliance or a JSW or a Tata who will say, okay, doesn't matter, I put it, and then people can watch it. So it's economics more than anything else.
Thanks, Mr. Srini. I think I'm coming to the last one or two questions. So
please go ahead. No problem.
How is adoption of analytics in the Olympic sports in India? Will India's performance in the Olympics be improved by the use of analytics in the training and selection of athletes?
Let's talk about performance, not training and selection, because a lot of factors come into to selection in the selection piece. How to explain it? So I think a lot of reliance is being placed on analytics right now, as I mentioned, from a sport point of view, club point of view, and even individual athletes. They are monitored very, very regularly, especially even during this lockdown. I saw a lot of these athlete representation companies telling their athletes to work out, shoot videos, keep themselves fit, because more than just keeping themselves fit, I think it's a lot of mental things also. For an athlete, he or she has to go out and play, and here you're stuck indoors, right? So it plays a lot on your mental health as well. So I think India will do, in my opinion, India will do pretty well because our standards have really, really improved as far as analytics are concerned. And right now, hopefully, the problem is not the Olympics in 2021, but it's the qualifying for the Olympics, because 42% of athletes have not qualified for the Olympics. And having a qualifying tournament before having the actual Olympics is the key. If you don't have qualifying for the Olympics, hosting the Olympics is easy. You can create another massive bubble, right? And that's Japan. They'll create the best bubble in the world. But 40%, 42% of the people have not even qualified. So how will you hold the Olympics? So I think more than that, we have a slightly bigger issue as far as Olympics. But for your question on data analytics and Indian athletes, I think there is a lot more interest. Take, for example, JSW, who's created this place called Inspire Institute of Sport, just outside Bangalore. I mean, outside Bangalore. Now, they take an athlete under their wing and just help them build in world-class facilities to ensure that their athlete gets medals for India. As part of Reliance Foundation, we signed up a lot of athletes when I was there as part of Reliance Foundation, just to help them give that little bit of, it's not just about the money, right, that you cut a check. Ensure that they get the best physios, they get the best coaches, and then train them to compete at the highest levels. So I think slowly, it'll take a little bit of time. Nothing happens immediately. I think over the next 4 or 5 years, if the structure is put properly, you will see India competing at the highest level.
So I've exhausted all the questions. So I have one question from my side. A typical management student, when he is graduating out of his MBA program, looks at marketing and analytics combination, or ops and analytics, or finance and strategy. Now, picking up sports management and focusing, building that proficiency, and also having the kind of skill sets, passion built up over the period, do you think that given the kind of demand supply mismatch which you talked about, is there any kind of a risk the student is taking at all in the whole process to focus a career in that direction? Maybe it was quite risky, as you said, at your times, but now, is there any risk at all he's taking given the demand supply?
There could be a risk in any job. You could have been employed in a bank, and because of COVID, they may have to lay you off, right? What I'm saying is there is a risk in absolutely anything that we do. For example, when radios launched, right? Nobody thought that their children could work in a radio station, right? Only thing you would hear is Akashvani before radios became privatized. There was no profession. You had disc jockeys, you had people working there. So a category was created, right? As far as sports is concerned, this category already exists, but it is chaotic right now. And what we are trying to do is structure this category, right? We don't have to build it from scratch. We're just trying to bring order to the chaos to ensure that, it is structured. If someone wants, the risk that you're talking about is minimized, because you are walking into something knowing very well what I'm walking into. So that's the structure that we're trying to create. Otherwise, there's risk in absolutely anything that you do.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Srini, for all this lovely explanations, and much appreciated for this. And over to Dr. Suresh Ramanathan.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
So Srini, thank you very, very much. This was fascinating. I mean, absolutely fascinating. I think just the amount of information that you were able to provide to the students, and also to convey the essence of what it means to actually succeed in terms of making a career in this area. I think this is, I think students have, I remember, when Sundar and I, we co-hosted a session about a month and a half ago, where we introduced the idea of having a sports management / sports analytics specialization at Great Lakes. The immediate response from the students at that time was, this is fantastic news. And I can sense the amount of latent interest and latent demand that there is, in the student body, and I would dare say that it actually probably exists throughout the country, in all the different institutions that are currently there. So there is a latent demand. The only question is, I think, as you rightly said, providing order in a situation where you have chaos, trying to show that, there is some structure, and particularly showing all the powers that be and showing all the different stakeholders that, there is something that needs to be done in order to bring some method to the madness of fitting people to the jobs that they are seeking. I think that is really what you highlighted so really well, in your speech. So I really want to thank you profusely for taking the time to come here and speak to our students. And I'm sure you will hear from us soon enough, we look to partner with you, and I will have my career and corporate services team reach out to you so that we can find opportunities that are suitable for our students. That I think will be the right way to take this forward. With that said, I just want to thank you once again, and let's keep the dialogue going. Thank you.
Absolutely, my pleasure. Thank you so much. Thank you so very much, everyone, and please stay safe. Thank you so much.
Take care.